Your thoughts affect those around you. Hi, I'm Reverend Andrew Bozeman, and this is On the Wings of Your Mind. And the purpose of today's talk is to continue to build your awareness of how powerful you really are. Your thoughts affect those around you. Now, you're not as isolated as you think you are. You are directly connected to everything and everyone around you. And as a spiritual warrior, it's important that you build your awareness and understanding that our minds are much more powerful than most people believe they are. Even though mental telepathy is a concept that is mostly discounted in the material world, it is actually a thing, and we should all be aware of it. Now, the idea of communicating through our thoughts has been talked about for centuries. Unfortunately, it's never been proven to the satisfaction of the millions of doubters. And any attempts to explore it were always scorned and ridiculed. Even today, researchers who have thousands of pages of documents to support the concept of communication through thought, they are still looked at as quacks. In the past, those who only believed telepathy, not necessarily tried to do it, but they believed that it was possible, were persecuted, and they were accused of dabbling in witchcraft, or were scorned as crackpots, or were totally dismissed as being out of touch with reality. First of all, you need to realize that all those negative reactions are fear reactions. Fear. Basic fear of the strange and the unknown. Fear. Of course, there are people who wish they could, quote unquote, read minds. It's usually something they'd only do in order to have power over other people rather than as a way to more honestly communicate with the people around them. And I would venture to guess that those people who would like to have the power to read minds would be reluctant to have other people read their minds. For sure. Anyway, please click on the thumbs up button, and if you haven't already done so, please choose to subscribe. It's the right-hand side of the screen. You can use the logo below for subscribing, or if you want to leave a message, click on the chat box on the right-hand side of the screen. I'd love to hear your comments, your thoughts, your suggestions. I'm open to all. Thank you. So, first of all, let's clarify what we're discussing here when we're talking about this mental telepathy. As I see it, for the sake of this discussion, there are three types of mental communication. Three. First is the skill of reading someone else's thoughts without sharing your own thoughts with them. This is called mind reading. Second is the kind where two or more people communicate through conversation or specific information through their minds. This is called mental telepathy. And third is picking up non-specific information from another's thoughts in a general way, in that it triggers a reaction within you as well as the others around you. I call this in general mental receptivity. Now, mind reading is a talent that we are used to seeing in fantasy world of science fiction, graphic novels, and movies. For instance, in the movie X-Men, or several movies X-Men, there are a couple of the mutants who can read minds, and what they've agreed to with their colleagues is they will not do so. They won't read the minds of other X-Men without their permission. In the Twilight Saga, the vampires, the Robert Pattinson character named Edward Cullen can read minds. And of course, aliens from other planets can always read minds. In the movies, they read the minds of the inferior human beings. Like the alien twins in the movie Race to Witch Mountain, where two alien twins are riding with Dwayne Johnson. Mind reading is also used for comedy in movies like Mel Gibson's What Do Women Want, or in the Taraji P. Henson movie in 2019, What Do Men Want? In numerous movies about the distant future, mental telepathy, or the ability to communicate mentally with each other, is pretty standard between humans. For instance, in the Netflix series Sense8, there are small groups of connected people who can verbally and visually communicate with each other through their minds. That's Sense8. And there's another Netflix series called Travelers, in which a group of time travelers can verbally communicate with each other with their minds. In these movies, as well as in books, it's as if these people have a continuous telephone conversation or connection between each other. But for today's spiritual warriors, I'm not talking about mind reading. I'm not talking about picking up other people's thoughts through mind reading or mental telepathy to bypass verbal communication with those you know. While those would be nice, we're not talking about that. We are dealing with what we have generally available to us all right here, right now. We all have a ability within us to have communication with all the others around us at some level. It would have to be nurtured and developed over the generations before it can become a reliable form of communication, that is, working with our minds. But we do have this general mental receptivity. It's an everyday run-of-the-mill kind of telepathy that happens actually every day. Every day. First of all, let me remind you again that we are individualized expressions of infinite intelligence. And since infinite intelligence is in us, as us, we are all part of one giant universal mind, cosmic consciousness, infinite intelligence. We are all in this ocean of consciousness. We exist in an infinite pool of thought, and we all have access to it. That is why ideas can pop up simultaneously and have more than one person doing the same thing in more than one place. It happens over and over again. The inventions of radio, we had Marconi and Tesla doing work at the same time on the same issue that had no contact with each other. There are movies that pop up with the same subject at the same time, even though the creators of the movies had no communication with each other. For instance, in 2013, there was a movie called Olympus Has Fallen, in which the White House is taken over by terrorists. At the same time, and within a few days of that movie coming out, was a new movie called White House Down. And White House Down was the same subject, but it was a different rendition of it. They didn't talk to each other about this. In 1993, there was a movie about Wyatt Earp, called Wyatt Earp, with Kevin Costner. And it was released around the same time as a movie called Tombstone, with Kurt Russell playing Wyatt Earp. Same time. General mental receptivity. We can experience the phenomenon of mental telepathy in our everyday lives with the seeming coincidental occurrence of receiving a phone call from someone you were just thinking about. I'm sure this has happened to you on more than one occasion. Actually, it's not a coincidence. There is a real mental connection that occurs when that happens. It happens because we're all in this same pool of thought. We're all in this together. And you and your friend were already connected, whether you know it or not, because you were friends, because of your past experience. So you're tuned into each other's frequency. As a result, when one begins to think about the other, one will call. The receiver gets the mental alert that the call is coming, and the connection is made between the two. That's just the way it is. Just as a bit of confirmation, though, there's a reason for this. In quantum physics, it is called quantum entanglement theory. quantum entanglement theory. And what quantum entanglement theory tells us is that when one particle or group of particles interacts with another particle or group of particles, they are forever linked. They are forever connected. And no matter how far apart, from a few feet to on the other side of the universe, when something happens to one, the other one will react at the exact same time, even though the distance between them is infinitesimal. One gets a stimulus, the other one will react at the same time in the same way. It's called quantum entanglements. Quantum entanglement. So you and your friend, you and your family, whenever something happens, there is a reaction. It may be a small reaction, but there is a reaction because you are connected. You are connected. There are millions, millions, millions of thoughts out there, but like a radio or television signal, it matters what you're tuned into. What you're tuned into. So you and your friend are tuned into the same channel, therefore you can communicate over that channel. Let me think about this a minute. Yeah. What brought this subject up for me? Well, it's something that happened yesterday that brought this subject up for me. I was driving down the street when my wife mentioned that she needed to go to the store to pick something up. And as I was driving, I looked up and there was a 7-Eleven right there. So I immediately turned left, pulled into the parking lot, and she got out to go into the store while I waited for her. As I was waiting for her, I could see the parking lot beginning to fill up. Other people were coming in, hopping out of their car and rushing in to the 7-Eleven. By the time my wife came out of the store was full. The parking lot was full. Then we're driving out of the parking lot and I reminded her that I had to go to Walgreens to pick up a prescription. Gotta go to Walgreens. But first, I have to stop by the library because I have to return some books and there's some books waiting for me to pick up. So I went to the library, I returned the books that were due, and I picked up the books that I had reserved that were waiting for me. When I got to Walgreens, there was already a line of people waiting to pick up their prescriptions. There was a line, and I was at the end of the line. So what's the point? Well, what those both examples are general mental receptivity at work. When I first got the thought to go to 7-Eleven, I was there, so I immediately turned in to the parking lot. But my thought went out into the universe and triggered the same thought in others who were already inclined to go to the store, but the thought had not yet reached the level where they were going to act on it immediately. It was just sort of hanging there. And the arrival of my thought triggered their thought up into immediate action. It's like, I got to go to 7-Eleven. So as I sat there, the parking lot filled up with people. In the case of the Walgreens prescription, I had already put the thought out there while I was still at 7-Eleven, but I did not immediately act upon it. So the thought was out there and people reacted to it. Oh, I got to go to Walgreens to pick up my prescription. So by the time I got there, the line had already formed. Of course, you can think of that as all coincidence. I don't blame you. But before you shut down your mind in final judgment, I advise you to do this. Start observing what goes on around you. See if similar things happen in your life. See if you think of something and you act upon it immediately if other people don't show up right behind you. Or if you think of doing something and then you delay, and when you get there, other people have already come and you're at the end of the line. See how often that happens. We're all connected. As individualized expressions of infinite intelligence, We are living in an ocean of consciousness. So our thoughts go out into that ocean and are available to everybody. And even though they don't have an effect in general, they are out there. But there are those who are already tuned into that particular frequency. That frequency that says, I need to go to the 7-Eleven. Or that frequency that says, I need to pick up a script at Walgreens. Then when your thought pops in, they have additional motivation, and that takes it up to the level of action. It can happen whether somebody decides to get an ice cream cone, or a pack of cigarettes, or even to call a friend. I remember my son complaining one day while he was in the hospital for minor surgery. He said that the phone had been quiet all day long, and then all of a sudden the phone was ringing off the hook. And I explained to him that it could have been triggered by something as simple as a nurse being reminded that it is time to check on Tony Bozeman. And this thought goes out into infinite ocean of thoughts, consciousness, and immediately anybody else who is linked to Tony Bozeman picks up on the thought. It hits them. It's time to check up on Tony. So what do? They pick up the phone and they call. When one decides to call, that even reinforces it more, and then others decide to call. It's time to check up on Tony. And next thing he knows, his phone is ringing off the hook. It happens. Keep an eye out. Be aware of what's going on around you. Watch your thoughts and see what reactions come about. Okay, tomorrow I'm going to share more examples of general mental receptivity to illustrate its reality and discuss how it works in your life. I'll also discuss how, as spiritual warriors, you can use it to bring about positive change in your life and in the world around you. You have the power. You have the power. You do have the power. Let's close with prayer. Thank you, Infinite Intelligence. Thank you for bringing all of us together in this life so that we may become spiritual warriors and join in the work we have come here to do. Thank you, Infinite Intelligence, for bringing us into this space of awareness and a deeper understanding of ourselves and our relationship to life and infinite intelligence. Thank you for showing us who we really are. We open our minds and hearts to the truth of our being. We are the children of God. We are individualized expressions of infinite intelligence. And because we are now part of the greater whole, we're beginning to understand our value to the continuity of life on this planet. As we become channels of your power, infinite intelligence, we can feel your presence within ourselves and within our lives more and more. We know that as we feel your presence within our lives every day, we will rise, because we are no longer cut off from you by being immersed in the darkness of fear, anger, and the pain of unforgiveness. So we're now restoring our connection through the grace of forgiveness, knowing that as we learn to forgive ourselves for the pain we have caused to ourselves, and as we learn to forgive those who have inflicted pain upon us, our connections will grow stronger, and our lives will grow happier and healthier and more prosperous. And for this we are truly grateful. As above, so below. As within, so without. And so it is. Amen. Please remember to click on the thumbs up button below, and if you haven't already done so, I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe. Remember, I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments, so please use the comments section below the video. I really appreciate your watching. I hope to see you again tomorrow. I am Reverend Andrew Bozeman, and this has been On the Wings of Your Mind.